What happened in school that still pisses you off when you think about it today? Last year of primary school, I was being bullied on a daily basis. One kid stabbed me between the shoulder blades with a compass. Teacher, seeing the blood through the back of my shirt, declared that I'd done it myself to my mother. Was talking to the guidance counselor about how it was ridiculous to me that a single missed assignment would drop my grade by 20-30 points, regardless of its importance. She said just because something is wrong doesn't mean you should try to change it. Why the frick would a guidance counselor give that type of advice to a freshman in high school? I found that a lot of guidance counselors were just bitter people who never got to be teachers. Both my parents are teachers and they hate their respective guidance departments. I took a computer programming class in high school and we had network folders to store our work. One kid found my password on a slip of paper, given passwords that we couldn't change, and was stealing my assignments and changing the name. I had been helping him through the class, but didn't think anything of it. Well, in programming it's very obvious if you steal someone's code, since the odds of you having the same variable names and methods to solve problems would be rare. I got called into a meeting with a teacher and kid and she just started laying into us. She accused me of cheating, telling me she was going to fail me and report me for academic dishonesty, get me kicked out, and told me that I'd never make it in life and not doing anything blah blah blah. I was completely blindsided. I had no idea he was stealing my stuff and turning it in. I tried explaining that I had no idea what she was talking about. She kept telling me I was a liar and stupid and wouldn't be successful, and just kept going on and finally said, "Never use me as a reference for anything. I'm now a very successful chemist in a very good company and still bitter that this teacher accused me of being a cheater and that I would never amount to anything because of it." Given passwords that we couldn't change. Sounds like the network administrator should have a fire lit under his butt. I was in the school finals of some general knowledge quiz competition. The question I was asked was, what is the collective noun for a group of whales? I answered confidently, a pod. The illiterate bloody teacher had a skull written on her answer card, refused to listen when I assured her it was indeed a pod. Her ignorance cost me the grand title and I was practically in tears in front of the whole school at the injustice of it. Everyone then labeled me as a bad loser. Will never forget it. Still seethe on it from time to time. It happened in 1985. 9th grade. Was loading onto the bus in summer school. A kid sat in a seat that a girl wanted. I told him not to worry about her. She proceeded to slap the crap out of me. As she was rearing back to slap me again, I pushed her away. At that exact time the driver gets on and sees me pushing her. We both go kicked out of summer school. I was only going so that I could graduate as a junior. She fricked up my whole plan for high school. In the 2nd grade, our class was walking in a single file line outside for recess. It had rained and was muddy and slick. The class bully, a heavy-set mean girl, was walking ahead of me. She slipped in the mud and fell on her butt. She jumped up and immediately pointed her finger at me. That being said, I pushed her. I got detention for a few days and had to spend that recess with my head down on a desk in the teacher's office. I swore I didn't do it and no one believed me. Whoa, that was like 1989 or 1990 and yeah, still pisses me off. I got detention for a few days and had to spend that recess with my head down on a desk in the teacher's office. And sleep. My teacher lost my finals, then made me retake them while making passive-aggressive comments about me trying to cheat. 2 weeks later she found my original final on her desk under a pile of papers. I hope she freaking apologized. In elementary school I had a teacher who made me throw away $3 just because I was playing with it in my desk, and I was devastated because it was the first money I had ever earned. So I'll remember that heartless bastard forever. Teacher scored your $3. He probably took candy from babies too. TLDR. My principal called my mom a bad mom, and my mom killed herself later. They are probably less connected in real life than they are in my head, but I'm still mad. In grade 7, I was accused of writing something mean on the wall of the girls' bathroom stall. They determined it was me by doing an expert handwriting analysis, where they took a piece of my homework from class and compared it to the wall, and the U's looked the same. That's right, the goddamn U's. Arguably one of the least distinctive letters of the alphabet after the L. But that was enough for them to be convinced that I had done it. Somewhat ironically, just that very morning I had gone in to pee during recess in a different bathroom, and someone had etched the word frick on the stall and then covered it in sparkly nail polish. I thought to myself, why would you even do that? What's the point? Anyways, I denied it vehemently. They brought my mom in, and she defended me saying if I said I didn't do it, I must not have done it. The principal went off on my mom. I remember sitting in her office, and my mom was holding me, consoling me. The principal said, I can't believe that you are listening to her when she is clearly lying. My mom stopped holding me at that moment, and kind of leaned away, clearly embarrassed by the judgment brought upon her by this principal. This was in June. At the start of August my mom killed herself. I know that she did it because she had a hard life and there were many things that contributed to it, but I still feel like one of the things that contributed was that moment in the principal's office. When she listened to this woman tell her that her 8th child was a failure, I can't help but think that my mom believed it, and saw it as a reflection of her entire life. It makes me sick to my stomach just thinking about that moment. And I was only 13. And I wish I could have told my mom that she was a great mom, and that she would have believed me. I still get really angry when I think about it, but I get absolutely irate when I see that principal. I have often thought about confronting her, and telling her how absolutely wrong she was about the entire situation. But I don't. I give her a scowl, and she probably thinks I'm still with that loser kid from elementary school who would never amount to anything. I just think how much better my mom was than she was, because she had faith. They determined it was me by doing an expert handwriting analysis, where they took a piece of my homework from class and compared it to the wall, and the U's looked the same. Either you were extremely unlucky to have had your homework selected first and then subjected to the usual lack of investigation, or they were gunning for you. In 6th grade the German teacher photocopied someone's test and gave it out to class. She did it because she wanted to point out all the hilarious mistake the kid who wrote it made and continued to mock the unnamed student for a good 30 minutes. She thought this crap was somehow acceptable because she censored the name, but her mockery became so vile that the girl who wrote it burst out into tears, and then the teacher got beat because she shouldn't have cried. Then it wouldn't have humiliated her, since nobody knew the test was hers or some crap like that. We used to do that, but only with good tests. Making fun of the bad ones is just not good business. A guy threw his cheat paper at me in an exam. The invigilator saw it, but instead of throwing him out of the class he threw me and gave me an F in that exam. In college I joined a new program the first year it was running. The college said there was not enough funding to buy a lot of the equipment and supplies we needed. We even had to buy our own plastic gloves, beakers, and chemicals for the lab. Then the school put up dozens of big screen TVs all over the school. The TVs did nothing but display ads for the college. As a 3rd grader we had silly games, one of which involved pulling each other pants down in front of everyone. Just as someone else did that to me, one of the professors that was known for being a huge C spotted me with my pants down and thought I did it by myself. She dragged me to the 5th graders class and made me pull my pants down in front of the entire class to teach me a lesson. I was terrorized and the bullying that came with it still resides in my unconsciousness. Bruh, that's so fricked. I got told off by the next person down from headmaster for not turning up to a maths lesson, because he thought I'd gone to a demonstration against the rise in university tuition fees. He was, however, perfectly okay with the fact that I didn't go to the demonstration and just couldn't be asked to turn up to the maths lesson. Other people who did go to the demonstration got suspended. The next person down from headmaster, the neckmaster. At my first secondary school, I was bullied almost constantly by numerous people of assorted ages. My parents told the school about this, and I was called to the head of year and a couple of others to discuss matters. They basically sat me down and told me that it was my fault, and if I had friends and didn't spend so much time in the library I wouldn't get bullied. They never did anything about the bullying. 3 days or so before my term paper was due senior year of high school, I was working on it at my uncle's place. I had papers, notes, rough drafts, and the like spread out all over the table. I was alone that night and there was an intense thunderstorm. Let me take you through the next 4 seconds. Tangible pressure change, lights go out, roof tears off, telephone poles, plural, rain down into the house. For the sake of relevancy, I'll skip the details of my obvious escape from death. Act 2. I tell my teacher my term paper was destroyed in a tornado. My suspicion was that it was the same one that destroyed my house, but sadly no usable prints at the scene. She never got my humor either. At any rate, may I have an extension? I can let you present yours last, but it's still due the same day. There was an oral component. How in the frenzied bowels of heck is that helpful? So now, fueled by illegally procured Ritalin and righteous loathing for the soulless sea who's standing on the throat of my diploma, I write the whole thing over again. Act 3. The rule for the presentation was it must be 5 minutes or longer. Number. Maximum. Time. I volunteered to present second. I presented the entire length of her class period and into her lunch period. She had to postpone every other term paper to a later date, essentially giving the entire class, save 2, an extension. I heard she died a few years ago. Now every time I see a rainbow after a storm, I know it's just God saying, I made it right. She won't hurt anyone again. TL. DR. Tornado ate my term paper. Busy teacher sets aside the time to tell me to eat a dong. I filibuster her butt and then God kills her. I had my person and all my belongings searched on 4/20 simply because of who I was, and I was acting lethargic. The butthole vice principal opened my bag and said it smelled like marijuana. In the pocket where I kept my cologne. Sent to ISS. My home away from home. Because they couldn't prove I was high. But they knew I was. Definitely didn't smoke. Knowing something like this was coming. Note, this was 15 years ago. There were 2 tech guys at the school. One was the manager and the other was his helper. The helper was the one who knew what he wanted. The manager was an arrogant butt who had the administration convinced that everything would fall apart without him. Well, the manager was a Mac person, so the school had a total of like 5 or 10 PCs. I found a vulnerability in their security software by accident. The Windows 3.1 file browser was completely unsecured. I went to the manager and told him about it, and he completely blew me off as not possibly knowing what I was talking about. Being a kid who was into computers, I was a bit proud of finding it and bragged to a friend. They told others, and eventually a couple kids heard about it and tried to take out the security system by deleting the folder while the program was running. Well, the manager was furious and went to the headmaster and told him I did it. This despite the fact that he knew the exact time it took place based on what files were deleted and that I was on the bus on my way home at that time. He pushed hard for suspending me even though he knew damned well I hadn't done it, and I had kept my mouth shut about it for over a month before I told anyone to give him time to fix it. Luckily the headmaster took me into his office and just asked if I did it. I told him no, and that if I had wanted to cause damage then the computer wouldn't be running now and I wouldn't be stupid enough to try to delete running applications. The headmaster said he believed me and that it seemed like the IT guy had a bone to pick and sent me on my way. It probably helps that I was friends with the helper who I suspect spoke up in my defense. 7th grade, my dad's affairs came to light. He told us all to frick ourselves and left. My sister was struggling with drugs and family life was falling apart. Not surprisingly, I acted out in school and failed. We moved that summer, but not before the principal took it a parting shot and told my grandfather, taking care of kids while my mom got set up with a new job in another state. I'm a loser and I'd never amount to anything. I took the failure to heart and got my crap together. When I graduated from a top 10 engineering school, my grandfather drove us back to the school to give the principal a copy of my degree and told him to go frick himself. Petty but feels fricking great. Ugh, my god, this is one of the best things on this list. Well done. 10th grade class. Relatively early in the semester, but getting a 90 so far. One assignment was to make a flash animation. There wasn't really a formal submission process, and students just had to show the teacher that the assignment was done. I was the first one to finish. I showed the teacher. He said good. I moved on to do other assignments. About a week later I got my updated class average. which dropped to 78 somehow. I talked to the teacher, who said he never saw my flash assignment. I argued that I was the first one done, that he even commented on it, and my friend was sitting right next to me when I showed it too. He was basically like, nope, never saw it. Eventually got my average in that class back to mid-80s by the end of the semester, but the sucker should have had a better submission process than just show me it's done. Not to add salt to the wound, but I had an 8th grade English teacher that was on the complete opposite of the spectrum. We had to turn in 4 papers through the year that would account for 25% of our year-end grade. I turned in 1, and somehow the guy never asked me for the next 3 but still gave me credit. A girl in 3 of my classes was allowed by the administration to have her cell phone during classes because her father was dying. I was aware of the situation since it was happening for weeks and she often had little breakdowns. One day, in first period, her phone vibrates while the teacher is talking. He disregards that fact that she's allowed to have her phone and demands she hand it over to him. I believe he said something along the lines of, "I'll read it and if it's not your mother then I'm keeping it," her phone, for the rest of the class because it rang while I was talking. Well, the girl flips out, starts crying as soon as she sees her phone screen. She said no, she's leaving. This starts a standoff between the teacher and her. He ends up blocking the doorway while still demanding her phone. His logic was if he didn't know it was her mom texting her then he can't let her leave. At this point, she's inconsolable and everyone in the class is screaming at him to let her go. Like, frick, you're complex, dude. Let her go, and he's screaming back, "I'm in charge here," to the point the class made so much noise that security came in to see what was going on. Security tells the girl just go to the office. Her dad did die that day and she wasn't in school for a month. The teacher had a leave of absence as well and we had a sub the rest of the year. From then on, students were not allowed special circumstances for cell phones and teachers were not allowed to block students from leaving. The real kicker is this was intro to photography and most students were there because we had to take a mandatory elective. Frick you, Mr. M. You were a dong to that poor girl who only wanted to see her dad one more time. I'm mad just typing this out. What a massive control freak dickhead. The first math test of the semester. Did an extra step on every equation. God knows why. Every problem had the answer in the work but an incorrect answer circled. Still got a 0. One kid didn't even take the test, had an unexcused absence for the day. Teacher made a deal with him for extra credit that would negate the test provided he didn't have any more unexcused absences. I had perfect attendance, no extra credit for me. Signed up with a tutor who helped me a lot. The lady was really a hero, but I still needed a crazy high score on the next test just to keep from failing. Me and the tutor studied like crazy. Teacher pushed the test back by a day and added more material. I was confident about the material but teacher wouldn't help me, and my tutor was unavailable until after the test. Just before the test I came to the teacher's office, begged them to let me take the test a few hours later, so my tutor could explain the new material to me during my off period. I cried and everything. Teacher said yes, but I still had to be in the classroom while everyone else took the test. Class starts. Teacher passes out tests and says, "It's been brought to my attention that some of you are struggling with the new material. It was unfair of me to spring that on you with such short notice. So we are going to take the test as a class, effectively guaranteeing everybody 100% I try to pick up a test." Teacher grabs my hand and says I already made a deal and can't go back on it. Pretty much tells the whole class I was crying in their office. Made me sit there and watch everyone get handed an A. I took the test a few hours later, got a B+, still not enough to pass. Had to retake it in summer school. Never took math. Beyond gen ed again, still hate it today because of that teacher. My jaw literally dropped while reading this story. I'm so sorry. The thread is honestly giving me such test-taking war flashbacks. I'm 5 years out of high school and still frequently have nightmares about missing assignments and failing tests. When I was 16, I started living by myself. One of the things that still pisses me off years later about the first year or so that I lived alone is that, even though my marks were actually improving at the time, there were still teachers who told me they liked me better when I lived with my parents. Yeah, please teacher, tell me more about how I should have moved back in with my abusive parents. I liked you more when you were quiet and submissive. Frick that teacher. I went to a small private Christian school. Had 12 people in our senior class. We decided to skip an hour and go to Dennis for breakfast one morning. So it comes time to ditch and no one goes. Everyone chickens out. It was me and one other kid that ended up going. The other kid didn't make friends easily, and in such a small school it is easy to single someone out. He was kind of known as being troubled, weird, no friends, etc. Well, I coaxed him into ditching with me. Figured it would be a good experience for him and make him feel a little less alone at school. So we eat our breakfast and go back to school. Teachers and principal are wondering where we went, so we just tell them we went to go get breakfast. I get detention and this other kid gets suspended for 2 days. They said he was a bad influence on me. I hated that so much. I felt so bad I couldn't get him out of trouble. Sorry, Ben. I get detention and this other kid gets suspended for 2 days. LOL. Somehow that made perfect sense to them. My teacher was teaching us that pi was exactly 3.14, with no other digits. I didn't know much about maths at the time, but I knew that pi had a lot more digits than that. So I said that pi wasn't exactly 3.14, which prompted the teacher to shout at me, "How could you think that? You only heard of pi this morning." When teaching pi for the first time, it probably is easier to tell kids that it's a terminating decimal, but this still annoys me. Freaking with the kids that are actually interested in something actually know something about it, because their questions might confuse others, is the worst thing to do. You're supposed to encourage these children. Jeez. A teacher told me I couldn't keep a bottle of water in my locker because it could be vodka or something. I told her she could smell it and check. She said, "That's not my job," and that I could just use the drinking fountain. I asked her if she would use the drinking fountain instead of her mug, the tap in the teacher's lounge. She wouldn't answer. Water bottles were banned at a school I worked at because a teacher was caught with a vodka bottle. When I was a sophomore in high school, this kid got really sick with mono. So bad he was hospitalized, and the principal announced over the whole school about this kid. He said if you wanted to make a card for him and his family, you could drop it off at the front office. Of course, this kid was an athlete and a popular kid. Well, about a week later I was hospitalized with histoplasmosis. It's an illness that attacks the lungs and dang near killed me due to the treatment I was taking. Well, I got better and went back to school after about a month of being in the hospital and in a coma. When I get back, no one realized I was that bad off. I asked if the school let everyone know and the school didn't. It just bugs the crap out of me, because I knew just about everyone in my class and no one knew I was in the hospital and could die. Not even one single card was sent to me. I cared but didn't care enough to make a huge stink about it. What really peed me off was my crappy English teacher who failed me and treated me like crap when I got back. When she told me I would fail even though I had taken the final and got a B, I got up and walked out of her class after calling her a crap teacher. I took the class over again during the summer, but that still pisses me off how I was treated differently because I didn't play sports. I had a teacher who asked the class to identify the body's largest organ based off the definition of an organ that we had just learned. I raised my hand and answered correctly that it's the skin. The guy tells me I'm wrong and says it's the liver. I explained to him why my answer is correct, but he still tells me I'm wrong with zero explanation. This was also the guy who asked me to multiply 912 and explain how I arrived at the answer. I got the right number, but apparently my mental model, 910 plus 92, was wrong. I have a math degree now. Frick that guy. I assume you meant 9x12, and you did it mentally by breaking it down into 9x10 plus 9x2. I do the same thing. The guy is an idiot. I have a mole on my neck. Some bastards at school tried to burn it off with a magnifying glass during a biology lesson, and ended up setting my jacket on fire. They didn't even get in trouble for it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.